Hi, welcome on into Courtside. This is a digital series about QVC entrepreneurs, and I'm your host, Courtney Webb. Today we have a wonderful entrepreneur, Mr. Harry Slatkin from HomeWorx on our QVC candles. Hello.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello.
Thank you for joining us, Harry. We appreciate you taking the time.
Thrilled to do it. I've got some time, so thrilled to do it.
Oh, good. So we're going to dive straight in because not only are you known as the king of home fragrance, you also have a prestigious award called the Nose, but we'll dive into those. But I want to hear a little bit about your first memory where you realized, I actually like fragrance and I want to get into this, whether it was from childhood or later on.
I think my first memory of real scent was when I was 13.
Okay.
So I was in charge. My father passed away when I was young, and I was in charge of actually lighting the candles and setting the house for scent if my mother was having a dinner or having friends over. So back then, it was very hard to get a lot in home fragrance. So she bought a brand from Europe, and what the brand was from Europe is you lit two different things. You lit the candle. So I always felt that the house was set once you lit the candle. And then you used to put these little round rings sort of made out of a thick paper on the light bulbs and drop oil droplets on it. And from the heat of the bulb, it would fill your home with scent. And I was in charge of doing that every time. So that kind of set the mood, the ambiance for the house. And so ever since, I'm always setting the mood. Now, I don't just do it in those days. You just did it when you were entertaining. You didn't do it for yourself every day. Now I do it for myself every day. But that's my first memory when I was 13 years old of my mother entertaining and me being sort of in charge of scenting the house.
Interesting. Well, so then you actually didn't start off, though, in home fragrance either. Was it true that you started off on Wall Street and then transitioned into the industry?
Well, actually, Courtney, as a surprise to you, I started my first company when I was 16 years old. So before I went to Wall Street, I actually started a table and bed linen company with my brother. And actually, that went everywhere. That was a pretty busy time for us. And I had to take a leave of absence. I was about to go to college. My brother was at college. He's 3 years older. And that was everywhere. We sold that from My Magnums to Saks Avenue to Bloomingdale's to JCPenney. So that was when I was 16 years old. And then when that ended, my brother went on to become an interior designer. But I then left that to go to Wall Street because all my friends were making fabulous sums back then on Wall Street. And I went to a company called Bear Stearns, which no longer exists, and started to do my Wall Street thing. And I became a director of the firm.
Wow. So you actually had that entrepreneurial drive at a young age. I mean, 16.
Can I share with you the funny story of me interviewing on Wall Street?
Of course you can.
Okay, so this is to me how you make a difference in life. So I didn't know it at the time. I've always had a little bit of that audacious entrepreneurial moment in me. So after running a company that I started at 16, we had lots of press. Obviously, I was meeting with the heads of all these department stores. I decided to go to work on Wall Street, and I went for my interview, which was set up by a friend with then a senior managing director of the company. And I walked in, and typical of Wall Street back then, he was reading the Wall Street Journal, and he had a cigar hanging out his mouth and wouldn't put it down for me in his office. So I was sitting there. I had my whole book showing all the press we had on the company. I started talking, and he didn't put it down. And I thought to myself, I have two choices. I could get up and leave because obviously I'm not interesting to him, or I could take the paper right out of his hands, put it down, and say, if you give me 2 minutes, I'll be out of here, and you can make your decision. So I did that. I grabbed the newspaper literally out of his hands, put it down. I said, give me 2 minutes. If you don't like what you hear, I'm out of here. And he hired me not because of any skills I had, but because I was so audacious that I took the newspaper. He thought if I had the skill to be that forward and that sort of, I'm not stopping at anything, just hear my story. He hired me because of the newspaper, not because of what I had done. So it just goes to show, do what's in your gut. Do what's in your gut.
Well, and that boldness is part of your character trait. So the fact that he was like, look, I can teach you all of the other stuff. I can't teach you the fact that you are able to be assertive and go for what you want. So that's such a true testament to you.
It's also gotten me in trouble. So I know we'll get into this a little bit, but one time we used to sneak our candles into Kensington Palace for Princess Diana. And so one time when she passed away, her family came to us and said, her sisters, would you please do her memorial candle, which we didn't think yet at the time, but they really wanted us because she loved our candle so much. So we did her memorial candle, and it went everywhere in the world, from every department store, everywhere. But one in particular, which I won't name, a big chain, didn't do well with it. Everyone else did. And they called us up and didn't want to pay for the product, and used every four-letter word to my wife and I on the phone. Back then, Laura and I owned Slatkin and Company together. And so Laura and I were a little bit aghast. We've always treated everything in life as a lady and gentleman, no matter what the issue is. So we decided to fly to wherever their headquarters are. And we walked into the meeting. We asked for the buyer to be there, but we asked for the buyer and her boss to be there. Okay. So the boss walks in, and the buyer starts us with four-letter words. It was unbelievable. I don't know what came over Courtney to me, but I used the boardroom scene from Mommy Dearest, word for word. Don't blank with me, fellas. I did the whole thing. The whole thing. I had come with someone who runs our company with my wife. Their mouths were open. Thank God the two of them had never seen the movie. I did everything. Mommy Dearest, the one about Joan Crawford. I did everything from the boardroom scene. And then when it's over, they released the funds. Now, they either released the funds because of what I said, or they released it saying, this is the craziest nut I have ever met. He just quoted the scene from a movie in the middle of this. But anyway, we got the money, we got paid by it. But my audaciousness can go in both directions.
Well, and come on, resourcefulness. You got to use what you have. Do what you can.
I think so, too. Of course. That's why I did it.
Yeah. You did. Well, that is impressive. And I will say, I'm going to have to go watch that movie now because I have to go relive that.
The boardroom scene, line for line, just so you know. You tell me after watching that boardroom scene with Mommy Dearest if you wouldn't release funds to me, too. Not crazy.
I'll tell you which.
Get him out of here.
Spectrum. Yeah, which spectrum am I saying, wow, I'm really impressed? Or am I like, oh my gosh, abort.
To this day, I have no idea, but we got the funds released.
That's amazing. So, okay, let's get into the department store part, because obviously the fragrances were doing well. Now, there was a moment in your life where home fragrance was usually on the home decor floor. And then there was this shift where they brought it up into the fragrance floor. Yes. Tell me what that means and why was that so?
Yeah, so actually we're responsible for the change in home fragrance, what it is today. And one of the things I read when I first came into the business, I didn't want to treat myself as a home fragrance. I always thought of me to this day, I'm a fine fragrance, home fragrance, because I work with master perfumers. Laura and I didn't think, oh, let's go to home fragrance perfumers. I wanted to go to the perfumers that were creating these award-winning masterful scents for the world. So we went off and I met with those perfumers and I read the great books on Estee Lauder, on Helena Rubinstein, on Charles Revson, who founded Revlon. And in reading all these books, their cleverness is, how were they going to change the industry for their own company? And the lipstick, as we know, became an instant purchase. Why? Back in the days when Estee Lauder was starting and Charles Revson and Helena Rubinstein, women went at a beauty counter. They'd say, I'll meet you at Saks' beauty counter, and then we'll go to lunch from there. That way it wasn't boring if we were running a few minutes late. So I knew I wanted to be in the cosmetic department. But when I first launched, our first launch was with Saks Fifth Avenue, and I knew it was going to be on the 8th floor, their home floor, which to this day, if you go there, you need either eat oxygen or you forgot what you went there for. Because by the time you get up that escalator to the 8th floor, you're like, oh, why am I here?
What did I do?
I knew that would not be big sales. So for me, I fought to get, that was the first thing we did when we launched at Saks. That was the first place we ever launched. We got to the 3rd floor, which is their couture floor, their most expensive clothing, in a big shop. Women's Wear Daily wrote about us for the whole home fragrance. Everyone woke up to it and said, hey, I want to have it. We could talk about that if you want, because we ended up doing all these different companies. But then I got into cosmetics, and now we're the instant purchase. So you may go in to buy your makeup, but right next to you is a bunch of candles. Now, they're not mine right now, but they're Laura's. My wife owns Nest. And when we started Slatkin Company, we got into cosmetics and we changed how home fragrance is thought of. It's no longer like when I was 13 years old growing up. It's no longer I lighted for a friend when they're coming over. It's no longer I'm having a dinner party. Now it's the instant gratification like a lipstick. And that's what we did.
Wow, that is incredible. That like within that span of time, and now look at home fragrance now. I mean, it has blossomed into so many different breadths of the line, which we can talk about in a second. But you just mentioned a little bit about that you were creating scents for iconic people also. You talked about Diana. Tell me a little bit about what that meant to you to be chosen to create a scent for someone's home and how you went about doing
Sure.
that.
Well, it ties in together, Courtney, in a bit, because when that Women's Wear Daily article, Women's Wear Daily, just for people who want to understand it, that is to this day the number one trade read that you read every single day to find out what's happening within the industry. Fashion, beauty, it's the number one. So to have a full page done was big. And all of a sudden we were getting phone calls from Ralph Lauren, from Vera Wang, from Tory Burch, NARS Cosmetics, Chopard, Dior, asking if we would do their home fragrance. And we did. Now, back then, we didn't do it for the prestige of those brands. We did it because we wanted cash flow. We were growing our business. As we look back on it, it helped to change the industry, because what it really did is it made home fragrance more accessible. It wasn't just like when I was 13. It wasn't just you had these very expensive imports from Europe and then all the way down people doing cheap cherry scents. It was now everyone entering the marketplace, and we didn't know. We know about it now. We look back and say, ooh, but back then we were doing it just for cash flow. But as Ralph and Tory and Dior and NARS and Laura Mercier started to add home fragrance, it became something we all said, ooh, I want to use that. And, you know, Laura Mercier, when we launched her home fragrance, and it was all in her bath line, and these yummy gourmand scents, what ended up happening is used them when you took a bath. It was no longer, again, the living room when I'm entertaining. So that started changing. And as for people who really are noteworthy, although I consider every customer that I sell to noteworthy because I love the stories on every level, we were on every Oprah Winfrey show. I'm going to tell you two stories. I'm going to tell you an Oprah Winfrey and an Elton John story because they are so great.
Okay.
So Oprah Winfrey on her Christmas show. She loves candles and she became addicted to ours. And so she put us on her Christmas show. This is the first one we're on. So the producer said, be ready, because when we put your 800 number at the end, if it's really popular, it's going to be a big moment. It's going to really hit hard. So we're on the Oprah Winfrey show, obviously watching it. And all of a sudden, and we had an office back then, and all of our employees were geared for it. We thought, okay, we're going to get some phone calls. The phones, you couldn't get a phone call into our company literally for 5 days. 5 days. Days. Oh, no. It was so bad that we had a backup system that took, I think it was either 100 or 200 messages. All we did every 10 minutes was clear those messages out. People calling in for candles, wanting to buy candles. That's all we did. And it lasted. So after about 5 days, you're talking about 24/7. So we're having Chinese food at night in the office. We're having, hero sandwiches. I mean, it's just, we never left the office. None of it. Nobody did. We were constantly taking the orders because, that's what you do when you're in business and you're starting a business. We said, oh my God, it's over. Finally, just trickling in calls. So we were on, it was right before Christmas special. So right before Christmas. So Laura and I are going away with the kids. We're going to an island to just rest, relax. Yeah. And literally we get to the island. We wake up in the morning. Oh, no. And Laura calls in, as she used to do every day. We used to call two things. One, we used to call the bank to see what checks had cleared in the bank. And the second is call our messages to see what messages. We're talking the beginning of the company.
Yeah.
The phone lines, the messages were all jammed up. Why? Now it was on in the Midwest. Because she starts, she goes, oh, but she didn't tell us that. So now we're on in the Midwest. No. So Laura and I spent literally the first 2 to 3 days of our vacation inside our room, beautiful sun, beach outside. We never saw it. There we were, room service coming, clearing, taking the messages orders. She'd take them. She'd read them out to me. I'd write them. And that happened. And then what happened? The West Coast.
Wow.
So that's being on Oprah Winfrey and the power of Oprah Winfrey. And how we met Elton John and ended up doing the candle for his foundation, where we raised $8 million through the sale of a candle for the Elton John AIDS Foundation.
That's incredible.
It was wonderful. But there was a candle we had. It was a gardenia scented candle. And there used to be a woman who would come in and she would buy so many of these that we had business conferences in our company saying, let's go on eBay. Let's see, where is she selling these candles? Because she can't be consuming them because you can't eat them. So where is she buying them? 4. And so one day she calls us up and she says, I have the person I've been buying the candles for, and he wants to come in your store, but you have to close your shop. And I said to her, well, we never close our shop. Oprah comes to our shop. Valentino comes to our shop. Mrs. Onassis, when she was alive, was in the shop. We never closed it because we started with a little shop on 70th Street, New York. And so she said, well, it's Elton John. We closed the shop. Legendary. And so we said, we're closing the shop. We don't care. We want Elton John in. And he came in and he bought $38,000 worth of scented candles. Now, anyone listening to this, just so you know, and I've said this for a year, if you buy $38,000 worth of candles, you're going to become an instant best friend. And we became friends with Elton. And just so you know, Elton has a room in every one of his house that is designed just for his candles, and they're temperature controlled. Elton himself will go through his house and actually extinguish his candles before he goes to bed. So that's my kind of guy, right?
Right.
So we were invited to his 50th birthday in London. And Laura and I are like dying. We're just, our business is in the beginning stages. We don't have a lot of money. What are we going to get Elton John as a birthday present that's going to compete with Elizabeth Taylor and all the famous Sting, all the people that are coming? So we said, he loves candles so much. Why don't we give him 24 couture candles that he can design? We could do the scent he loves, and that'll be his gift. And we sent it ahead of time before we went over the birthday. And he called us up on the phone. He said, guys, this is the best present, but let me tell you how you would be the most superb present I've ever received. Would you ever considering making this candle in my scent? I'll work with you for my foundation, which we was just starting because AIDS was just becoming a huge issue. And he wanted to get the candle out, not as much to raise funds, because he was successful at raising funds, but really to get awareness at Neiman's, all these different places we were launching the candle. And we did it. And we raised $8 million through the sale of this candle. But that's how Elton John came about. So each one of them is just a story that came through business and what happens as you move through business.
Well, and it came through effort and diligence. I mean, you could not have had those opportunities if you weren't preparing yourself and laying that foundation and constantly open to possibility. I mean, I think that's one of the key parts of being an entrepreneur. You have to be open to whatever comes your way, the great things, but also the hard things as well.
Well, I have to tell you, it's mostly hard, and the great things are the icing in the beginning. Because starting a company as an entrepreneur, and I can tell you, and I've started a few, it's a lot of hard work. Nothing to deter you because you got to be ready for the hard work. But that icing is getting a phone call from Elton John, being on the Oprah Winfrey Show, or getting a phone call from the founder of Bath and Body Works and Limited Brands and saying, I want to buy your company. And that's when we sold our company to Bath and Body Works. And then I went there and built the largest home fragrance company in the world. So it's all a voyage, but you've got to keep your, headspace of open to it all, staying focused on what you're doing, not getting deterred by, movie stars are wonderful. And Elton John, I consider movie star-esque, or Oprah, I consider movie star-esque. But really, doing what's the right thing and the good thing for your business and for others. And for Elton, when he said that, making the candle for AIDS was something for us that meant a lot, and helping people that we knew were affected by AIDS. So for us, it's just a voyage, but you do what's always in your heart and your stomach, not always your head. You got to combine all of them together.
That's interesting advice. I think someone out there is probably thinking, I needed to hear that, because we all need to be aware of the times when we're thinking, okay, should I do this or should I do what's in here? And so sometimes I do think that you have to take that leap of faith, and what your gut is telling you and what your heart is telling you, you have to kind of navigate that. And then just be ready for whatever the consequences are or the challenges that may come. So you've obviously then expanded to QVC. Tell me how you got to QVC and now you make HomeWorx for us so that we can have your beautiful fragrances for ourselves in our homes.
So I've been watching HSN and QVC since I was 14 when Barry Diller started it. So back when. And now Mike George, who's your chairman, is going to kill me when I tell this story because he begs me not to. But back then, I was watching QVC, and they had a reindeer made out of wood on it that when you lifted its tail, it pooped peanut M&Ms. And back then, you used to show on the corner how many they sold, and they were up to 39,000 pooping reindeers. And I said to myself, I was 14, I said to myself, someday, if they can sell a pooping reindeer, I'm going to figure out something to sell on QVC. And when I got to Bath and Body Works, I was the president now. They bought my company. I became the president. And I was growing it. And when I started to turn the business around and grow it, I said, how am I going to tell all the customers that what I've done is so much better than what had been there before? And so I called up QVC. And when I got to QVC, which obviously you know QVC, but for those who don't, it's sort of like this enormous, massive office space, studios. So when you pull up, it's intimidating for the first time.
Yeah.
And I got to QVC and they wanted me as much as I wanted them because you didn't do home fragrance back then. Mm-hmm. You dabbled in it. You really didn't do it. And so we went on QVC and our first show was a complete sellout in 49 minutes. So with our show sold out in 49 minutes, we basically had to go, I mean, there was nothing much to do. We were sold out, chit chat. So we sold out in 49 minutes and it was so successful to the stores that we had to put signs in the store as seen on or sold out on QVC because customers who didn't smell it on TV or couldn't buy it because we were sold out would run to the store. And so that made us successful. We became your number one home fragrance. It's called Slatkin & Company. We became your number one home fragrance brand on QVC. But I turned the business around, built it into the largest in the world in home fragrance. And then I stepped down from it and consulted for Bath & Body Works for 3 years. Oh, wow. And then I stepped away from home fragrance because I had a non-compete. And then Laura, who owns Nest, was having lunch with your number two at QVC back then. And you guys are like family. Once you're inside the world, we all become close. We know each other. It's years we know each other. And it's comfortable. When you see that reaction with a host on air, that's real, guys. That's not artificial. You get to know them off camera. We talk before we go on air. We stay in touch through Instagram. It's really a family at QVC. So when she was having lunch and asked me to join, I thought, let me join because this is like having lunch with a great friend.
Yeah.
So the person said to me, we've never replaced your business. We'd love to have you back on. Would you ever think of doing home fragrance for us? And my wife kicked me under the table because she didn't like the idea of me doing nothing. And so I said, if you're real, let me know. And Monday I woke up to an email said, we're real. Here's our proposal. And I started HomeWorx for QVC. And that's how I got back to QVC. And it's been an amazing ride. We're your number one home fragrance brand. The business has been amazing. This spring alone, we're completely almost sold out in all our product. It's just been fun. And it's with family because you guys are so easy, so comfortable. The way you treat customers is why I'm there. It's why they come back. You treat everyone who buys from you the same way. And so that philosophy has been mine my whole life. I don't want to be in a business. I will walk away from a business if I find I'm not treated well or the people I'm selling aren't treated well. And that's just not your philosophy.
No. And then also it extends, whether you're just watching, maybe you've never even bought from QVC before, you're still part of the family because as soon as you just kind of turn it on, it's instant, it's instantaneous. And I think that's the openness of QVC and why so many of us love to work here and also watch.
And when you do those things, people think I'm doing that to just push product in people's hands, but you do like easy pays and all. But really what you're doing is you're like, try it. You know what? Yeah. We're going to relax and you can, if you don't like it, you have a great return policy. Try it. If you don't like it, it's okay. We're going to be here for you. But that ease, that comfortability of being able to shop over air is why I've been able to grow back to a great business with you. We're almost sold out in spring. And it's why that happens because the customer ends up trusting you. I trust you. They trust me, and I adore you. So there you go.
Just a wonderful circle of life at QVC.
It is.
It truly is.
It really is.
So you kind of mentioned just a little bit here about Laura, your wife. So she created Nest, which you can also find. Now, what is it like both of you being in the same industry? Because did she come from Wall Street as well?
We met on Wall Street. So that's where we met. And we didn't like each other when we first met.
What?
No, we didn't like each other at all. She was breaking up with someone and I was about to get engaged to someone. And we just didn't like, that's another show. That's a whole show. How we met, the whole thing. That's part 2.
That's off the court.
But then we became best friends and then fell in love and got married. And it's now 28 years later. So we are a scent family. We started, when we got married and we're working on Wall Street together, we decided we wanted to change, which is why we left Wall Street to start the home fragrance business. And so we grew this together. So we know what it's like to have nothing and your life savings go into it to build something up, the scariness of it. It's scary no matter what level you get to. It's always scary, but the thrill of it, the excitement of it. So people always say, do you keep your businesses separate? Yes, we do. Mm-hmm. But we're husband and wife. So we share everything that's going on. We talk scent together. We meet with perfumers together. They come to our home for dinner. If I'm having QVC for dinner, Laura's at the table as well. If she's having, it's just we share everything together, and we have the same sensibility. And having started a fragrance business together, we read each other's minds. So it's very great.
Oh, that's so exciting to have that, especially be able to kind of have like this confidant that knows the industry just as well as you, but has a different skill set.
Yes,
which is amazing.
It is. Actually, it's a similar skill set and different. Because again, her products are different than my products. Sometimes we keep things secrets because she doesn't want me jumping on a launch before hers, or vice versa. So sometimes there's a little bit of fragrance secret in the house.
Oh.
But we have we don't really fight for territory in the house. We just all of a sudden I'll go down and like my candle was in the front hall. Where is it now? And I realize she moved hers into the spot, and now I've been put into the library. But you know what? We rotate it, but you'll always find both our candles going at the same time.
Oh, that speaks volumes too, as far as you using your own product. So as far as obstacles, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're constantly coming into obstacles. You're constantly finding roadblocks. What is one or maybe a no that kind of impacted you to shift how you look at business, to change how you approach things and create your product? Was there one that you just kind of remember thinking, yeah, that was a pivotal moment for me or for the company?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've spoken about different things that have happened to experience me, but I am basically what I always say is a bastardization of, which means a sort of a grouping of different personalities all in one. So when I worked on Wall Street, I worked for a very famous man named Ace Greenberg, who was brilliant, who actually was really brilliant at his philosophy. He had an adage of, if you get a message and don't call that person back by the end of the day, you better come see me because they took the time to call you, which is why I answer every message personally on my Instagram. If someone emails me, if someone texts me, because that's respect. And in business, it's respect. The other one I learned along my voyage is if you don't know something, don't sit in a meeting going like this, raise your hand and say, excuse me, I don't understand that at all. And so I think for me, it's just being you. Don't think you have to pretend, which is something I did in the beginning. That company when I started when I was 16, computers were just starting then, and people didn't. Today, computers are a natural thing, but back then you didn't really do computers a lot. And I lied, and I told this very big company worldwide that I was on computer. And then what our orders? I mean, it really was doing so well. The company was growing leaps and bounds. We were getting huge purchase orders every 3 days from this one company. And they would call up to check on their invoice, on their purchase orders, and they'd hear the papers wrestling in our notebook because we weren't doing this on a computer. And what I learned from that experience was honesty, just dead honesty. You know what? We'll always figure out. There's always a solve to it. Just dead honesty, raise your hand. I don't know what that means. No one's ever going to look at you stupid. Anyone who's ever worked for me knows I always say to them, I don't care if you walk in and you say, I have the new rubber chicken idea. Tell your idea. Just be honest, be open. Out of 20 dumb ideas, it will be the one that's the killer idea. So for me, I think the most important part is just be real, be you.
Oh, that's really good advice. And especially because you actually have a prestigious award from the Perfumers Association called the Nose. So tell me what that means in business that you're in.
Yeah, so that was a very big honor for me. So what that was is the Perfumers Association are the perfumers voting. Let me tell you, perfumers are probably the how should I say, I don't want to say snooty, that's the wrong word. They are
particular,
master. It's like meeting a great artist or meeting, they are more than particular. They are very, very sort of like masters of their universe. And so for me, I've always gotten along with perfumers because I've always said to them, I don't know, let's work together. But I talk their language because when I first Ralph Lauren's Home Fragrance, Ralph mentioned he tells everything in a movie. Everything he creates is a movie. He's telling a story, beginning, middle, wonderful moments, the ending. It's a story. And when I talk to perfumers, their passion is fragrance storytelling. That's what they do. So they tell stories through fragrance, and it's their passion, their love, and it's coming from their soul. So it's really, they are movie producers. They just are these masterful storytellers through scent. And so I love them all so much that I've dealt with, and some really great famous ones, that they gave me that great honor. And they gave me that honor. And that honor is what led me to get that wonderful, prestigious moment of I'm a nose. I'm an official nose, not just one I call myself. And past recipients are Estee Lauder and Helena Rubinstein, like I mentioned, and Charles Reston, who founded Revlon. And there are some really prestigious winners of it, but it's a tight group. So that makes this a very important sniffer for all the fragrances that you all smell through my home fragrance. Because remember what I said earlier, I'm a fine fragrance home fragrance.
That is so true. So, okay, thank you so much for sharing that, because I think a lot of us, we hear the nose and we want to know what that means. But before we sign off here, I would just want to hear from you. What is some advice that you would give someone changing industries or maybe wanting to desire to be an entrepreneur? What advice would you give that person who wants to take that step forward, kind of into the dark? They don't really know what's going to happen.
Well, when you take the step, no matter what, you're jumping off a diving board because you don't know what's going to happen, and it's going to be a voyage. And you better have seasick pills because it's an up and down voyage, and you've got to be ready for that up and down voyage. What I would say to you is just know what try and find your passion before you do it. So you want to make sure you know that you love it, because the reason being is you're going to be on a vacation and up those 3 days taking phone messages while the sun's outside and you're stuck in a room having room service, or in your office having pizza 24/7, like I did with the Oprah show, or you're going to be, scared because the bank hasn't cleared checks because you don't have the money in it right now, and in 3 days you'll have it. Those kind of voyages mean it's a passion. And you've got to love what you're doing because it's tough. But if you love what you're doing, nothing will stop you from getting there. You will figure it out. You will be clever, and you will enjoy the ride. And when I look back at the many years, it's 28 years I've been in the fragrance industry, it has been the most fun, every bit of it. I now look at challenges of how to overcome them. And no always means to me yes. So when someone says no to me, I try and figure out how that's a yes. But you've really just got to be, you've got to be passionate. If you're an entrepreneur, you must find the passion behind it.
Perfect. I think passion is definitely key, because that is the one thing when you hear all those no's and you hit all those obstacles and challenges, it's the only thing that you can say, pull on your bootstraps and just keep going, because you have to have faith that you are doing something you love and that other people will love as well.
If you're making donuts and you believe your donuts are the best, those donuts, you're going to get up every morning at 4 a.m. to make sure those hot donuts are ready for someone because you love those donuts. Yes.
Oh, that's so true. Well, how can we support HomeWorx? How can we follow your journey? Are you on social? You mentioned Instagram. Tell me some of those places.
I am. So the best place to do HomeWorx is we have on Instagram HomeWorx. You can follow me under Harry Slatkin. I'm open, so you can come on in and follow me. I answer every message that you want, any questions. Same with HomeWorx. We answer every question. You can go to QVC. You can social media on QVC and find all my products. I love hearing from you. I learn from you. So when you don't like something, I learn from as much from you as when you do love something. So I love hearing from everybody, and that's how you do it. And I'm watching all of you. I love when you comment and post things on your social media, but that's how you get in touch with me.
Perfect. Well, is there anything else you would like to say before we sign off? We just appreciate you taking the time, and your stories are absolutely phenomenal. I feel like we need another catch-up episode after it.
Yeah, I have all the gray hairs for all the stories, by the way. But I guess for me, really just a message to the person watching this, who obviously is a QVC consumer, is thank you so much for being so loyal to me and the brand. Obviously, I strive to give you the product I give you, which is why you are loyal, because it basically, I could have the nicest smile and have the greatest stories, but if my candles don't perform in your house, you're not going to like it. And every candle I put out there, I personally use in my own home, or I wouldn't bring it to you. So just thank you all. Courtney, thank you. This has been so much fun. When you reached out to me, immediately I said yes, because I love being with you anyway. But the hosts on QVC are just so, what you guys see is just what you get. There's no the camera's off, they turn into these mean, evil people. It's just a wonderful, wonderful family, and I'm thrilled to be part of QVC.
Oh, Harry, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time, and we will definitely go and follow you on social and go shop HomeWorx on QVC.com. Also tell Laura thank you so much for bringing her candles as well.
I'll tell her. I told her she wasn't allowed in the room while I was airing, so I'll tell her.
Oh, no, I'm going to have to catch her and be like, Laura, we got to talk to you next. You weren't allowed
my
in the
wife
room.
doesn't take a stay away very often, so I'll open the door soon.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your week.
You too. Thank you, Courtney. This has been great. Thank you.
Bye.